Undocumented immigrants are sometimes treated as subhuman, but I think they're superhuman. In fact, they're super Americans. So many anti-immigrant blowhards disparage so-called illegal immigrants while also praising and revering the nation's glorious immigrant past. Even though if they were alive during the nation's glorious past, they'd probably be like, I'm not racist, but Irish are not white. I don't trust those freckles. Because that past isn't so glorious. Immigrants in the U.S. have always been racialized and discriminated against until the next wave of immigrants comes along to scapegoat. The English hated the Germans, who hated the Irish, who hated the Italians, and together they all hated the Chinese. Even Massachusetts, one of the first colonies way back in 1700, legislated against the influx of immigrants from countries like Germany. And yet, without German immigration, we'd never have their descendants like Tommy Lahren.
A day without illegal immigrants isn't bigoted or intolerant or racist. It's respect for borders, law, and order.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to go to hate prom. This year's theme, white supremacy under the stars. There are two fundamental things the immigration debate in this country misses. One is that there's been a massive political failure over the last few decades to fix what everyone agrees is a broken immigration system. It's really broken. Like Sean Spicer crying in the shower broken. And two, 11.3 million undocumented immigrants are actually human beings. And that's what I want to focus on, the humanity of undocumented immigrants. Because they are people. People with histories and families and exciting new languages with cool swear words. And 2/3 of them have been here for at least a decade. That means they also binge watch The Bachelor and love American football. Who cares if you play it with your hands? But I understand it's hard to see undocumented immigrants as human because of the seemingly superhuman things they've done. First, there's what they've survived in their home countries, the reason they immigrated to begin with.
I'm running away from the gangs, the drugs, all of it. If I get back to Honduras, they can kill me.
They were asking for half my husband's salary. He was late with the payment, so they said they would kill us. They would rape me in front of him and then kill our children.
Oh my God, that is terrifying. And that's just the beginning. Then there's the journey to the States itself.
Hundreds of migrants sit on top and in between its cars. Many people get hurt or killed boarding or getting off while it's moving. And that's why it's known as the train of death.
The desert is filled with snakes, scorpions, and smugglers.
Perla Lopez says she came to the U.S. 19 years ago, 8 months pregnant. She swam across the Rio Grande River.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You escaped a drug gang, rode a death train, walked through a scorpion-infested desert, and swam across the Rio Grande at 8 months pregnant? Sure, some would call that illegal. I would call that being an American ninja warrior. And once in the U.S., you've got to find a safe place to live and avoid deportation.
Undocumented immigrants rescued, some crammed into a shed behind this tiny home in University Heights.
And on this side of the house, 2 dogs in the backyard here. We're hoping that somebody knows they're here.
Why? So you can deport them too, you monster? And you've got to go to work and avoid deportation.
For the second time in 12 months, sheriff's deputies raided a paper manufacturing plant in Phoenix.
The raid happened at around 7 o'clock this morning at Prismographic Corporation in South Phoenix.
They're in handcuffs after a raid on 4 Mexican restaurants throughout the area. And this morning, those restaurants can reopen, but will they?
Bank accounts were not seized and the restaurants were not forced to close. So we're trying to get some answers for you this morning.
Yes, important answers. Will the breakfast burrito still be on the menu? Who's minding the guac? And will I have to dog La Divina a Yelp star? And if you're trying to remain in the States legally, well, then you've got to navigate your way through an insane immigration law bureaucracy. The court system is so confusing, this nonprofit made a video explaining it using children.
Hello, my name is Judge Meyer. Welcome to Immigration Court.
Hi, I'm Malik.
Hi, Malik. First of all, don't be worried because I'm a judge and you're in court. This is not a criminal court, and no one here believes that you're a criminal.
No one except the president, the vice president, the attorney general, most lawmakers, and me a little bit. Because immigration court is actually where justice goes to die. There's now more than 585,000 pending cases and only 322 judges to hear them all, which means it takes nearly 2 years for cases to be heard. Here's how one actual immigration judge put it.
We just don't have enough time in our daily workload to be able to handle that volume of cases. We often say that these are death penalty cases in a traffic court setting.
What does that mean? Well, it means mothers like this one who've been in the States for 20 years get deported in minutes.
10 minutes ago, the immigration authorities told me I'm out of options with my case, that there's nothing else I can do. They've given me 2 weeks to leave.
Man, 20 years of wonderful memories destroyed in minutes. Kind of like how we all felt watching Dumb and Dumber 2. I waited 20 years for that. Given all that, undocumented, first of all, given all that is my catchphrase. We all know that. Given all that, undocumented immigrants manage to rise above and do some amazing things, like picking crops in 100-degree heat for sometimes below minimum wage.
Es de andar agachados, es andar hincados, de lo que sea. Si no te duele una cosa, te duele otra cosa.
Or protesting for your rights, even though it makes you a target. And even being at the top of your class and getting a full ride to an Ivy League school.
And Martinez plans on double majoring while she's at Yale University in cognitive science and political science. And she tells me that her goal is to ultimately become a neurosurgeon, and she wants to work with Doctors Without Borders.
Illegally! And yeah, by virtue of the fact that they entered this country illegally, they might have done all those things illegally. But contrary to what your uncle might forward you, undocumented immigrants don't mooch off the system. They give to it. In 2010, they put $13 billion into Social Security and received just $1 billion in benefits. And yet, undocumented immigrants aren't eligible for Medicaid, Medicare, welfare, food stamps, public housing grants, or any of the other things Trump will also be stripping from legal citizens. Undocumented immigrants do so much, they're almost more than human. They're superhuman. And maybe that's why so many Americans treat them like a threat. They're like the X-Men. They live among us in the shadows, doing the jobs that we won't do, like taking care of our own children or fighting robots. And they're capable of feats most of us find impossible, like having laser eyes or speaking 2 languages. But despite all kinds of persecution, they still help us in our time of need. We need to stop treating undocumented immigrants like X-Men and start treating them like another comic book character. Superman.
Yes, it's Superman, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men.
Superman is the ultimate undocumented immigrant. He came to America as a baby from a faraway land he can't go back to because it's been destroyed. And the people of Metropolis treat him like an American hero instead of treating him like an illegal alien, even though he's literally an alien. And even though he's not from here, he represents the best in all of us.
Truth, justice, and the American way.
That's right, the American way. And if the American way means coming from nothing and making something of yourself by being the toughest, strongest, and fastest, even in the face of overwhelming adversity, then undocumented immigrants aren't just superheroes, they're super Americans.